Ronin Beatmaker, and we're back after that brief little hiccup. I apologize. I apologize for the hiccup. I made a mess up in the back end, but we're back. Now give me a couple seconds. I gotta repost this. On Twitter, since I made my boo-boo. But if you're new to the channel, please make sure to hit that like button and subscribe and ring that notification bell. Now, on this episode, we're going to discuss, bless you, Pablo. And on this episode, we're going to discuss the Denisovan legacy around the world. Bless you, Pablo. That is Pablo, my old Mexican. So I was first privy to the Denisovans from watching an interview with Joe Rogan and Graham Hancock, and I found that to be really interesting and compelling, as well as catching a couple Gaia episodes in regards to the Denisovans, and I had to admit that I was really compelled by the information that was being presented, and also just the fact that the idea that, as Graham Hancock has coined it, that we are a species with amnesia. And I would also coin that to agree with the fact that, we're a species with amnesia, but we also are a species that doesn't even remember our relatives, our humanoid relatives. And if you're curious as to what I mean by that, I highly recommend you check out my live stream where I covered essentially the fact that the United States presidential presidents are descended from a elongated bloodline, and the fact that there was at a time a separate humanoid species that occupied the planet. So if you're into that kind of stuff, I highly recommend you check out that live stream episode. But the point that I'm kind of making before we get into the articles is the fact that as more and more information comes out about these separate hominid species and the more work that like Brian Forrester does and Graham Hancock and many others, you'll begin to kind of really see the true narrative of our world. And I think that's something that's extremely important for many of us to kind of be aware of, is the fact that, we are being manipulated in terms of what our true history is and our true origins. And I'm not here to say that, everything is a conspiracy or a psyop or something like that. But I would say that many things are being used in a form of psyop. Even the truth is being used as a form of psyop. And I think what's interesting about the more information we learn about these, the Denisovans, uh, the more we learn about the elongated skulls in Peru, in Bolivia, or even in Romania, the more we start to realize that we truly have no idea what our origins are. And I feel that it's unfortunate for us as humanity that we're constantly being manipulated and led down paths that are really unethical for us, and being manipulated into condoning and promoting such lies and deceit. But it's kind of ironic too, at the same time, is the more that they are trying so hard to hide things from us, the more information keeps on getting exposed, and the more people are becoming validated in their knowledge, their findings, their data, and it's all there in front of us. And some of the things that we're going to cover in these articles in regards to the Denisovans, it completely kind of contradicts what we have been taught in the history books about early man. And I think many of us out there who are very interested in these types of conversations are aware that some of these ancient megalithic structures, they were clearly built prior to our version of humanity, and maybe even prior to the Denisovans. There is this massive area in Siberia where it's just full of bones, human bones, Denisovan bones, giant bones. We're going to get into some really interesting things when we cover these articles. And I just want everyone out there to just keep an open mind. We're not going to be going into some wild tinfoil areas, but I would say keep an open mind in regards to some of the knowledge that you're going to be, and that you and I are going to be privy to. I think it's going to be some really exciting stuff. So without further ado, let's get into it. Alrighty. Hold on a second. Why are you not working? Okay, there we go. All right. This is an article updated July 25th, 2019, written by Andrew Collins. The teeth have it, tracing the Denisovan legacy around the world. And above, we have a picture of a jawline with some teeth. A dental trait found in the I'm going to pronounce some of this stuff incorrectly. Jaihe Denisovan jawbone, as well as some ancient and modern human populations, now provides a rare opportunity to track the geographical reach and perhaps even the final fate of the Denisovans. Confirmation of the discovery of the first Denisovan mandible, lower jawbone, found as far back as 1980 in a cave in Zhang County on the eastern edge of the Tibetan Plateau in China's Gansu province, might now provide the key to understanding the geographical reach and perhaps even the final frontiers of this enigmatic pre-sapiens population. This follows the publication of a new study focusing on the mandible's surviving teeth. And one thing I find interesting is that these pre-sapien populations, so they weren't even our version of Homo sapiens. And I know you can go with the whole evolution and all of that fact, but I also think that when you also kind of ask yourself, well, if there are elongated skulls in South America and Europe, and they were actually born that manner, and they don't have the suture bone that most modern humans have, you then gotta kind of question yourself, like I was saying earlier about these various species of human. The study, headed by Shara E. Bailey, Associate Professor of Anthropology with the Center for the Study of Human Origins at New York University, notes that Zaihe mandible has a mandibular molar, a molar in the lower jawbone that displays 3 roots instead of the more than usual 2 found in anatomical modern humans. And here we have a photo showing the displays of 3 roots instead of 2. And this is a reconstruction image of that lower jawbone. This is the first time that this dental trait has been detected in pre-sapiens populations. What's important about this finding is that this same dental abnormality has been recorded in a number of ancient and modern human populations. Almost all of them of Asia or Native American extraction. Since these same populations are now known to carry Denisovan's ancestry, Bailey and her team proposed that this unique dental trait, referred to as 3RM1, 3-rooted lower first molars, is caused not by a gene mutation, as was generally assumed, but derives instead from introgression, that is, interbreeding either with Denisovans or with their hybrid descents. So let's learn a little bit about the Denisovan inbreeding. Oh boy. Oh, okay, we're good. I thought I deleted it. All right, here we go. We're all good. All right, now this article was updated April 1st, 2019, and it was written by Ed Whelan. Modern humans could have mated with Denisovans as recently as 15,000 years ago. A study has made a startling claim. It argues that an extinct species of humans, the Denisovans, may have mated with modern humans, Homo sapiens, as late as 15,000 years ago. And just to put that in perspective, Göbekli Tepe in Turkey was constructed 12,000 years ago. This claim is based on genetic analysis of Papuan's DNA and could transform our understanding of the evolution of modern humans. It seems that the Denisovans survived until relatively recent times, and they mated with Homo sapiens for thousands of years. The Denisovans, Homo denisova, were hominids related to the Neanderthals, but the 2 species derived about 750,000 years ago. All that is known about them comes from a single cave in Siberia, the Denisovan Cave. Recently, archaeologists uncovered 2 pieces of Denisovan skull in the cave, reports Ancient Origins. These hunks of a skull are so prized because the remains of only 5 Homo Denisovans have ever been found. Genetic legacy of Denisovans. Geneticists have been able to identify their DNA, and this is helping us to better understand this extinct species of humans. Researchers have been able to establish their genetic legacy in a population ranging from the Philippines and New Guinea to China and Tibet, have inherited 3% to 5% of their DNA from Denisovans, reports Science magazine. It seems that this branch of the human family left Africa sometime before Homo sapiens and that they lived in Asia for thousands of years. When modern humans entered Asia some 50,000 years ago, members of the two species mated with each other. The Science magazine reports that as a result of the extensive interbreeding, many modern Melanesian populations in the Pacific have up to 3% to 5% of their DNA from them. A team of biologists led by Murray Cox and Hirawati Tsudoyo found traces of two types of DNA from Denisovan's populations. In samples of Papans from New Guinea, Papua New Guinea, after studying the results using statistical analysis, they found that some of the genes had only entered the human genome as late as 15,000 years ago. Finding Denisovan genetic material at so late a date was very exciting. The genetic analysis of the sample from New Guinea adds to the body of evidence for mating between modern humans and the Denisovans. And here we have a tribal member from New Guinea with a little pet on their shoulder. I can't even remember the name of that animal, but it is a mammal, I believe. No, or is it a marsupial? I think it's a mammal. I don't think it's a marsupial, but I could be wrong. Modern humans and Denisovan mating. Evidence for interbreeding could help us to understand how the Denisovans became extinct. It appears that they were not driven to extinction by the activities of early modern humans, as some have suggested. To put it simply, the extinct species bred with early humans and became over time indistinguishable from them. According to the National Geographic, the evidence indicates their numbers were never very high. The small group could have easily been subsumed into larger Homo sapien population by interbreeding. The findings of the team led by Cox and Tsudoyo have lent support to the view that the Denisovans were much more widespread at a later date than previously thought. It seems that their DNA entered the human genome some 30 to 15,000 years ago. This indicates that members of the species were apparently living in New Guinea at this date along with Homo sapiens. Let's see. The last Denisovans. This possibly indicates that isolated populations of Denisovans survived as late as 15,000 years ago in the Pacific Islands. The Science magazine quotes Chris Stringer from the London Natural History Museum as stating that a late surviving lineage of Denisovans could have interbred with Homo sapiens. Moreover, it suggests that modern humans and the extinct species were mating over a period of tens of thousands of years ago. There are those who reject this, and while accepting that while Homo sapiens and Homo denisovans may have mated regularly, claim it as highly unlikely that they did so as recently as 15,000 years ago. The discovery may be accounted for by two groups who have been isolated from each other and both had some Denisovan DNA. Because of migrations, they encountered each other after a long period of time and mated, and this could explain the findings of the international team of biologists. The evidence from New Guinea is adding to our understanding of the long extinct species. They were a diverse population that appears to have interbred with modern humans for an extended period. This is changing how we see modern people and how they came to dominate the world. They may have peacefully absorbed groups like Denisovans by interbreeding. This could also explain why Homo sapiens are the only surviving human species. Interesting little nugget there. Now, one thing I find interesting is that, they're only talking about they're only talking about from just in North America, and it seems like Asia and maybe a little bit of Europe, but they're not talking about South America. So I just find that interesting, and I wonder, like, is there conflicting data, or is there not enough data to kind of trace, if we're going to go by, the mainstream narrative of this, the lineage of humans in South America, because we know that around that same time there were humans in South America. So we'll see. But I wanted to follow up with that within that same paragraph about the Denisovans and why there definitely seems to be case to make that these species of humans were pretty intelligent, and I think it also further kind of adds to the conversation about, well, who were, and if you've caught my episodes discussing the dynastic races, what are and who are the pre-deluge races that populated the earth? There is evidence for them, and I'm wondering, were the Denisovans part of that pre-deluge race, or one of the various, humanoid races that were prolific at that time? All right. This was updated June 13th, 2018, written by Andrew Collins. The lost legacy of the superintelligent Denisovans, who calculated cynocentric-based cosmological alignments 45,000 years ago. Now, this kind of coincides with what this sort of coincides, but earlier with what we were looking at before about the interbreeding between Denisovans and Homo sapiens, in that they speculate around 30,000 to 15,000 years ago. Okay, so then prior to that time, what were Homo sapiens and Denisovans, going on doing? When did that interaction occur? A chance discovery by archaeologists in 2008 of a finger phalanx of a archaic human found in a Denisovan cave in Altai Mountains of southern Siberia has helped change everything we know about the origins of civilization. The sequencing of the bone's genome in 2010 showed that it belonged to an extinct type of hominin. This previously unknown human population are today known as the Denisovans, in honor of the cave in which the finger bone was found. And above we have a picture of the cave entrance, and here we have a map showing us exactly where the Denisovan cave is, and it's in Russia, or yeah, Russia, Siberia. It's almost close to the border of Kazakhstan, um, and many ways away from the border to China. And here the map of Altai, Tarim Basin, and Baikal regions of Central and Eastern Asia, showing upper Paleolithic sites and the other locations mentioned in the Singhis Key, including the Denisovan's cave. Robust individuals. Since that time, the Denisovan cave has produced, named after a hermit called Denis who lived there in the 18th century. Alrighty. Shout out to Denis. Has produced further evidence of Denisovan occupation between 100,000 and 40,000 years ago. It comes from the discovery of 3 molars, 2 from adults and 1 from an adolescent. All are extremely robust, suggesting that at least some Denisovans were exceptional size and height. Denisovan ancestry. In addition to this, up to 5 to 6% Denisovan DNA has been traced in modern human populations, from Central Asia in the west across to Asia, East Asia, South Asia, Melanesia, and Australia in the east. It is present also among the Yi or Lolo peoples of China, Vietnam, Thailand, and the indigenous Sherpa populations of Tibetan Plateau. Denisovan DNA is even present among the first peoples of both North and South America, opening all sorts of possibilities concerning the migration of Denisovan hybrid groups into the Americas during the Upper Paleolithic Age circa 40,000 to 9,600 BC, a matter explored by Dr. Greg Little and the present author in the book Path of Souls, written in 2014. Advanced human behavior. In addition to this, the floor level that has mostly produced evidence for the presence of Denisovan occupation in the Denisovan cave, layer 11, has offered various tantalizing examples of advanced human behavior, including a beautifully polished arm bracelet made of bottle gen chloritolite, a form of chlorite. This shows evidence of having been sawed, polished, and finally drilled to create a hole through its width so that a second object, perhaps a stone ring, could be hung from a cord. Interesting. So later on, we're going to see some images of that, but I just wanted to give you a little piece of that so you kind of can be aware that, clearly this species was fairly intelligent, or highly intelligent for that matter. Oh Lord, what just happened? I don't even know. I apologize. Somehow we got stuck on a damn commercial. Well, if you're looking for a Toyota, seems like they got some good deals. Alright. Well, it looks like I gotta fix this, so 1 second, guys. Alright, and we're back. Apologies. Now I see we got some people in the live stream. Much love to you guys for taking time out of your day. So please, I highly recommend you hit that like button, as that would be greatly appreciated, and it'll help the channel grow. And if you're new, make sure to subscribe. And I apologize for the nose hairs. Good Lord, that man needs some bush clippers for those. All right, here we go. Since these same populations are now known to carry Denisovan ancestry, and her team proposes that this unique dental trait referred to as 3RM1, three-rooted lower first molars, is caused not by a gene mutation as was generally assumed, but derives instead from introgression, that is interbreeding either with Denisovans or hybrid descendants. And as we just covered, we know that the interbreeding may have started 30 to 15,000 years ago. And we also covered with the Denisovans that about 40,000 years ago, they were clearly making advanced jewelry. So, kind of makes you wonder, were the Denisovans in many ways responsible for, furthering and advancing Homo sapiens? We'll see. Who knows? Some human populations, particularly those considered Mongoloid in ethnicity, okay, such as Chinese, Aleuts, and Inuits, can have mandibular molars with an extra supermammary root in anything between 50 and 40% of the population. Most usually, this dental abnormality is seen in the first mandibular molar, where it is referred to as 3RM1. However, it can also affect the second or third molars, where it is known as 3RM2 and 3RM3 respectively. And here we have a photo of a modern human mandible, lower jaw, showing the three molars and the first molar that can have an extra root. The term 3RM1 being given on this trait. Oh, okay, I see what they mean now. Interesting. Because we normally have two molars. Okay, yep, got it. All right, Pengu 1. Indeed, it is the second mandibular molar of the Zhai jawbone that a third supernumerary root was found, a feature found also in the large pre-sapiens mandible dredged out of the Pengu Channel between Taiwan and the nearby Pengu Islands. This was found by fishermen sometime between 2008 and is thought to be between 190,000 to 10,000 years old. Known today as Pengu 1, these characteristics common to both the Zhai mandible and the oversized Denisovan molars found in the Denisovan cave located in the Altai Mountains of southern Siberia. This suggests that it could belong to a Denisovan. All right, and here we have the Pengu mandible found sometime prior to 2008 by fishermen dredging the channel between Taiwan and the Pengu Islands. And there you have, I believe, it looks like the three molars. If the Pengu 1 jawbone is Denisovan, then this not only adds weight to Bailey's proposal to 3RM1 as inherited by modern humans via gene flow, but it also now permits us to better zero in on the geographical reach of the Denisovans through the continuance arguably in the same regions in many instances of those of hybrid descents. Now, that's really interesting. It's just, we're kind of pushing and pushing and pushing forward, kind of trying to figure out what's going on here and what is the narrative of this. And what I find really interesting is the more we're kind of learning about, the molars, it just further adds to the whole way that, biology is pretty set in stone and you can't really change it. And even here with these jawbones, they haven't stated specifically whether it's female or not, but the point, female or male, the point remains is that the biology there, it's sound. You and I'm using my words carefully because I also am streaming on YouTube, but we have to keep in mind that this same discovery could be done with us 50 150,000 years into the future, if society had to restart itself again in many ways, and the biology would be sound. They would be like, well, this is a version of Homo sapien. This isn't a version of Homo sapien that identifies as a hawk. So I'm just kind of bringing that in there to kind of remind people that there are some sciences and that are sound. I'm not saying you got to trust everything or every science, but we would be foolish to not. I would be foolish to not remind people that this type of data and type of archaeological studying and analyzation is very sound, and you can't argue with that type of biological information. Just a little friendly reminder to everyone out there. Now we talked about the hybrid descendants. I think so. Let me double check to make sure that's not next on the list. Oh, we're on. Let me see. We're on 4. Okay. Oh, no. Okay. So that'll be next. Just wanted to double check. We're not there yet. Okay. The Philippines. To date, the oldest anatomical modern human remains to display 3M M1 is the mandible found in 1962, along with part of the skull cap during excavations at the famous Tabon Cave at Quezon on the island of Palawan in the Philippines. Good Lord. All right. So the Tabon Cave in the Philippines, showing the extraordinary simulacrum of a human skull noted in 2014 by the tourist Philip Mize. Here we have the picture. Above the cave, it looks like almost like a human skull. Very interesting. All right. Dubbed Toban Man, it is approximately 31,000 years old. Not unconnected is the fact that a dental survey of human remains belonging to 171 individuals found in the Philippines and dating back almost 5,000 years found that no less than 17.4% displayed 3RM1. This suggests that this trait might well have been present in the archipelago from the age of the Toban Man, 31,000 years ago, all the way down to 5,000 years ago, and arguably even beyond that to more recent times. There is also convincing circumstantial evidence that 3RM1 might have been introduced to the archipelago either by Denisovans or by their hybrid descendants. With the sequencing of Altai Denisovan genome in 2010, with higher coverage sequencing in 2012, it became apparent that some Austronesians, indigenous peoples living in the island of Mindanao in the Philippines, more specifically the Maoanao and the Monobo populations, possess noticeable traces of Denisovan ancestry. And here is an old photo of Bagabo priests from the Philippines. The Manabo have been shown to possess noticeable traces of Denisovan ancestry. Okay. The additional fact that recent genetic survey of human populations from Indonesia and New Guinea, located south and southeast of the Philippines, uncovered compelling evidence that at least one branch of so-called Sudan Denisovans might have survived through until around 15,000 years ago, tells us that the earliest people of the Philippines almost certainly encountered Denisovans. Where exactly is unclear, although most likely it was in an island in the Southeast Asia somewhere. Oh God. Oh, hilarious. Thus, it is becoming clear. Man, some of these ads are ridiculous. I'm sorry. Thus, it is becoming clear that islands of Southeast Asia, which once formed part of a much larger landmass named Sunda, that embraced Indo-Asia, Borneo, and the Malaysian Peninsula, along with the Philippines and Taiwan, which was itself much larger in size at the end of the last ice age. The Penghu Channel, being then above water, can now be seen as a potentially important territories of the Denisovans before their final disappearance, perhaps as late as 15,000 years ago. This can deduce the presence in the region of populations with both Denisovan DNA and high frequency of 3RM1, showing world distribution of Denisovan ancestry among current populations, and maps showing the percentage of 3RM1 found in ancient and modern populations worldwide. Here we have a map, and the star here is Denisovan Cave, and we have a world map that's essentially just showing where a lot of the Denisovan bloodline can be traced, and as we look at it, I mean, it's all over the place. We're talking, as close as all the way into North America. So I think many of us out there, I think we should kind of ask ourselves, well, how did it reach all the way to North America? And I think, to me, I mean, it just makes me really question a lot of this information in a good way. I think what we're learning and uncovering here, I think it's really interesting. And I think for many of us out there, I'm sure if you have done any of these, of the, ancestry.com or, any of those kind of things, I'm sure some people out there have found some really interesting stuff regarding their family lineage, and maybe they found, hey, I got some caveman in me, which is entirely possible. I know Joe Rogan is one to talk about how much caveman blood he's got in him. No surprise. I mean, he does look like one. But I think a lot of us out there, we got to have a little bit of an open mind when it comes to what they're trying to tell us in relation to this information. And to me, it's very telling that we are really just scratching the surface of what we were as humans, and the other types of humanoid species. I mean, it sounds weird saying that, and I even for me, it's like, it is kind of weird saying that. I'm not lying, because like, there's enough evidence out there, and I've seen it, that like, yeah, there were clearly other humanoid species. And I know and it's like, it is weird saying that. And even I'm trying to, like, when I say it, I'm like thinking to myself, bro, you sound crazy saying that. But I've already said several things early on that would indicate that I probably am a little crazy with what I humor in terms of my beliefs and what I'll entertain. But the only reason why I'm saying it that way is because I think it just makes it easier to kind of distinguish what we're talking about. Because, you know, when we're learning that these species of humans obviously were technologically advanced to a certain extent. They had modern technology. They had, well, not I shouldn't say modern technology, but they clearly had the technology to make things and design beautiful architecture. And I think before we continue further, let's touch a little bit on that information, actually. Oh, wait. I'm sorry, you guys aren't hearing it? Just realized that. The sound is still not working. Well, that's frustrating. Well, I'm not going to waste time trying to figure it out. But essentially here, there are other species of human beings that existed in the Americas, like we're finding in Russia, and there's many of them that are being discovered all over the world now. These subspecies, human beings, and Graham is saying, you go into America. Before that was the first draw of me into the Denisovan cave in Siberia. I think everybody's heard of Neanderthals these days, and I think everybody heard of the Denisovans. So in this video, like, they're essentially kind of talking about the fact that you can pretty much like realize that these Denisovans, these humanoid species, not only were they in North America and Asia, but they were also highly advanced and highly sophisticated. And I think that for many of us out there is kind of jarring. But since I can't get the audio to work, we'll head to the other articles. I got a couple other articles in there that got pictures and drawings of what they've created. So we'll get to that in a little bit. Apologies. I'll get that fixed next time. So let's head back down. All right, we covered the Philippines. Now when we were talking about, we were looking at the map and how the Denisovans pretty much, they're found everywhere except in Africa, but they're in North America, South America, even in what's that, Greenland? Yeah, Greenland too. But they highly populated Asia. So I think what's interesting to me about that personally, like, is if you look into Noah and you look at his sons, you trace up with Joseph, his son, and how he pretty much kind of repopulated the area of Europe and even Asia. So there's some interesting things there when you look at the biblical aspects of of history in terms of human history. I think if we were to kind of like trace in relation the scientific discoveries of various humans and correlating it with written religion and the birth of certain religions, I think we might find some really compelling and interesting data and information there. But that's just me personally. And the next key here, or the next map, showing the percentage and level of dental trait 3RM1 in ancient and modern populations as recorded by a number of different studies, as collected by Ahmed Sem Erkamana and Ferhat Kayab in 2014, Mediterranean Archaeology and Archaeometry. Note the high evidence of 3RM1 in Eastern and Southeastern Eurasia and also in North America. What is more, there are several other clear examples where modern populations have been found to possess both 3RM1 and Denisovan ancestry. They include the Chinese, the Mala, Javanese, interesting, Japanese, Thai, and Vietnamese. All show not only a high incidence of 3RM1, but also traces of Denisovan ancestry. The Inuit. Also striking is the case of the Inuit of Arctic Canada, Alaska, and Greenland. Genetic studies have shown that the Greenland Inuit not only possesses Denisovan ancestry, but also carry two genes, TBX15 and WARS2, inherited from the Denisovans and enabling them to live permanently in extremely cold environments. Is that true about John Travolta? I'm just looking at this ad to the right. Is that true? Someone drop it in the chat if that is true, or in the comments section. Thus, it is inheriting to know that ancient modern Greenland Inuits display 3RM1 in as much as 26.9% of the population, a figure very close to that of their Alaskan counterparts, Africans and Europeans. In contrast, European and African human groups display little, if any, Denisovan ancestry. This is probably due to the fact that the Denisovans and their hybrid descendants would seem only to have ever occupied Eastern Eurasia, along with Melanesia, Australia, and just maybe the American continent. It therefore comes as no surprise that dental studies show a fairly low frequency of 3RM1 among European Caucasians. For instance, two separate studies of British Caucasians, one from 1899 and the other from 1973, both found that around 3.4% of the population display 3RM1. Another study of European Caucasians in general found 3RM1 in 3.2% of those examined, very similar to the results from Britain. In African studies of the Malabar molars, 67 members of the Bantu population determined that not one individual possessed 3RM1. Another study of the Nubian dental traits found 3RM1 and 2.6% of the population, with some groups displaying none whatsoever. If found to be consistent among other populations of equatorial Africa, such findings would add weight to the idea that the Denisovans developed as an individual pre-sapient species only after they reached the Eurasian continent and moved eastward into Central, Eastern, Southern, and Southwestern Asia, leaving Western Eurasia to their sister group, the Neanderthals. The particular low rate of 3RM1 among European Caucasians is usually seen as a result of simple gene abnormality. This is in complete contrast with Asian populations, where the percentage of 3RM1 is so high that it can only have come from direct inheritance. Originally, it was thought that 3RM1 in Asia populations was a result of genetic mutation in a past common ancestor. Yet, the discovery that a third root is present in lower molars belonging to both Jehe and Pangu 1 mandibles, it is now becoming clear that more suitable explanation would be to assume that this dental trait in fact derived from introgression with either with Denisovans themselves or with their hybrid descendants. So the fact that between 3 to 3.4% of European Caucasians do carry 3RM1 as opposed to the zero rate detected in some equatorial African populations could well imply that its presence may in fact be a very weak signal of past Denisovan introgressions with the ancestors of some European populations. Greg L. Little and the current author in the new book Denisovan Origins provide new evidence that the upper Paleolithic culture known as the Sulotrian, which flourished in southwest Europe circa 20,000 to 15,000 BC, evolved from much earlier incursions into Central Europe circa 30,000 to 25,000 years ago that might well have begun as far east as southern Siberia or Mongolia. And here we have Sulotrian tools, 22,000 to 7,000 BC. Looks like we have some arrowheads. And yeah, mostly looks like arrowheads. Maybe some spearheads. If correct, then it is possible that this Proto-Sulotrian or Eastern Gravitian population possessed at least some North Asian ancestry, which perhaps included both Denisovan DNA and the 3RM1 dental trait. If so, then these could have persisted among the Sulotrians of Southwest Europe before eventually being diluted through introgression with other Upper Paleolithic populations. Moreover, the arrival in Western Europe of Neolithic farmers inbound from the Near East circa 6,000 to 5,000 BC would have diluted this Denisovan ancestry and the 3RM1 dental trait, still further examining why both are barely traceable in Europeans today. Siberians and Mongolians. Such speculations also make sense of findings regarding the presence of 3RM1 in Siberian and Mongolian populations. For example, a dental study of 164 individuals who inhabited northeastern Siberia circa 200 BC found that 23.2% possessed 3RM1. Furthermore, an examination of 30 individuals who lived in the shores of Lake Baikal in southern central Siberia during Neolithic times showed that 23.3%, nearly one quarter, possessed 3RM1. Lake Baikal is 994 miles east of the Denisovan cave, the type site of the Denisovans, which they occupied through until around 45,000 years ago. The discovery during excavations at the cave of Finley work beads made of ostrich eggshells has led to speculation that the Denisovans had contacted with either archaic human or modern human groups existing in the Lake Baikal region, since it was the trans Baikal east and southeast of the Great Inland Sea that was the closest natural habitat of ostriches at this time. The presence of 3RM1 in human groups living on Lake Baikal during Neolithic times was very possible the result of introgression between their direct ancestors and either the Denisovans of their hybrid descendants. This too is an important realization, especially as hardly any Denisovan DNA has been found in the current populations of Siberia and Mongolia, any substantial Denisovan ancestry having been diluted and lost long ago. To me, I just find this really interesting, because it's like we're learning that, there was clearly separate, human species and humanoid species out there. And they obviously were intermingling and interbreeding. And in this article here, we can, and we'll cover right real quick about these different archaic human groups. And this is updated July 18th, 2019. Genetic analysis has revealed that the ancestors of modern humans interbred with at least 5 different archaic human groups as they moved out of Africa and across Eurasia. While 2 of the archaic groups are currently known, the Neanderthals and their sister group, the Denisovans from Asia, the others remain unnamed and have only been detected as traces of DNA surviving in different modern populations. Island Southeast Asian appears to have been a particular hotbed of diversity. Published in the Proceedings of the National Academy of Sciences, researchers from the University of Adyal's Australian Centre of Ancient DNA have mapped the location of past mixing events, analyzed from existing scientific literature by contrasting the archaic human genome survive in modern humans. Each of us carry within ourselves the genetic traces of these past mixing events, says author Dr. Zhao Tixiera, Australian Research Council Research Associate at the University of Adelaide. I apologize if I'm butchering some of these names. These archaic groups were widespread and genetically diverse, and they survive in each of us. Their story is an integral part of how we came to be. For example, all present-day populations show about 2% of Neanderthal ancestry, which means that Neanderthal mixing with the ancestors of modern humans occurred soon after they left Africa, probably around 50,000 to 55,000 years ago, somewhere in the Middle East. End quote. But as the ancestors of modern humans traveled further east, they met and mixed with at least 4 other groups of archaic humans. Here we have a photo or a digital creation of the representation of archaic humans, wearing fur clothing, spears, torches, looking like a bunch of people at Burning Man. Island Southeast Asia was a crowded place. Island Southeast Asia was already a crowded place when what we call modern humans first reached the region just before 50,000 years ago, says Dr. Tiexiara. At least three other archaic human groups appear to have occupied the area, and the ancestors of modern humans mixed with them before the archaic humans became extinct. At least three other archaic human. Here's a picture of an archaic human group. At least three other archaic human groups appear to have occupied the area, but they are still a mystery. So we only know of two of them. We don't know the other three. Interesting. Using additional information from reconstructed migration routes and fossil vegetation records, the researchers have proposed there was a mixing event in the vicinity of southern Asia between the modern humans and a group they named Extinction Hominin I. The Out of Africa story isn't a simple one. Well, that kind of makes sense. Other interbreeding occurred with groups in East Asia, in the Philippines, the Sunda Shelf, continental shelf that used a connect Java, Borneo, and Sumatra to mainland East Asia, and possibly near Flores in Indonesia. With another group they have named Extinct Hominin II. We knew the story out of Africa wasn't a simple one, but it seems to be far more complex than we have contemplated, says Dr. T. Quote, the island Southeast Asia region was clearly occupied by several archaic human groups, probably living in relative isolation from each other for hundreds of thousands of years before the ancestors of modern humans arrived. The timing also makes it look like the arrival of modern humans was followed quickly by the demise of the archaic human groups in each area. End quote. Here we have a photo of depicting modern humans arriving, and they look like they are coming to collect. Both of them, the man and the woman, they both got sticks. They're looking like they're ready to colonize. Oh man, that's funny. Very interesting. Very, very interesting. What is this? All right, we're not there yet. I do have some. There's also some really other interesting types of other various. Hold on a second, guys. Okay. Sorry about that, guys. We're back. All right, we covered the Africans, the Siberians. All right, on to the New World. Moving across to the New World, we find that among the Aleut of the Aleutian Islands off Alaska, the frequency of 3RM1 is a staggering 40.9%. In contrast, however, very little Denisovan ancestry has so far been detected among their population. What has been found, however, in two recent genetic studies is the presence of Australo-Melanesian ancestry among the Aleut. Most likely, this originated in the Sudan region of southeastern Asia, where 3RM1 has been noted in 15% of the population. The presence of 3RM1 among the Nadine Northwest Coast First Peoples of the Pacific Northwest has been found to be around 15%, while in many other Native American populations the rate falls between 5 and 7%. Some Denisovan ancestry has been traced among the first peoples of North America, with the Tlingit of the Pacific Northwest and the Ojibwa and the Cree of the Great Lakes, St. Lawrence River region displaying the highest incidence of Denisovan DNA so far detected by any one group. However, not enough information is yet known about the Denisovan ancestry in Native Americans. So this might relate to the presence of 3RM1 among the same populations remains unclear. However, there are clues. Interesting. Now, I'm pretty sure they're gonna probably touch on and reference, that time that North America and were probably connected, because we know that they're, I don't want to get too crazy here, but if you were to trace the the lineage and the origins of many indigenous Americans, and I put indigenous in quotation marks, in the areas of Western North America, their lineage would be traced back to Siberia. So there definitely is something there. Synodonty and Sundodonty. Repeatable patterns of dental traits and dental morphology have been noted among different Asian populations, and these can be broken down into two distinct groups, both of which display high frequencies of 3RM1. The first of these groups are described as synodonty in nature, syno meaning Chinese and don't meaning tooth-like. Those who display synodonty dental morphology are mainly Eastern Asian peoples such as Chinese and Japanese. The second group is classified as a Sudandonty in nature from Sudan, the name of the former great landmasses embracing Indonesia, Borneo, and the Malaysian Peninsula. Those displaying a Sudandonty dental morphology have been found in skeletal remains belonging to the Jomon people of Japan, along with modern-day populations of Taiwanese Aborigines, Filipinos, Indo-Asians, Bornese, and Malaysians. This includes populations of Australo-Melanesians ethnicity, even though Sudandonty is not seen in Australo-Melanesian skeletal remains older than 5,000 years. This has led to the speculation that the original Australo-Melanesian population was overrun at this time, most likely by Austronesians coming from Taiwan in the north as part of the so-called Austronesian expansion circa 65,000 to 5,000 years ago. This said Sudandonty does, as it is named suggests, probably originate in the Sudan region of southeastern Asia. The pioneer in the study of Sudandonty and Syndodonty was an American anthropologist, Christy G. Turner II, 1933 to 2013. Damn, that man lived for a minute. In a comprehensive study published in 1990, he determined that Sundodonty, good lord, appeared to be more archaic and thus far older than Synodonty. Good lord. Man, they just love tongue twisters, these scientists, don't they? This is a very important find since it closely correlates with what we know about the two basic types of Denisovan. The Siberian Denisovans, who probably inhabited the more northerly territories of Siberia, Mongolia, northern China, and Tibet, and the Suda Denisovans, who thrived farther south in mainland Southeastern Asia, island Southeast Asia, and Melanesia, and perhaps even the former Sahul landmass that once embraced Australia and New Guinea. Both branches of Denisovans display their own unique genetic profiles, although it is the Suda Denisovans who are now recognized as distinctly more archaic than their more northern neighbors, the Siberian Denisovans. It is a situation that matches very well with the evolution and geographical extent of Sundendonti and Sindodonti dental morphologies in Asian populations. This seems likely to be coincidence, suggesting that the dental traits found in these two different types of populations, one in Eastern Asia, the other farther south among peoples primarily of the Melanesian or Austroasian descent, may have been forged by introgression either with the Siberian Denisovans or the Suda Denisovans, the later having perhaps survived in one form or another down to around 15,000 years ago. It's perhaps with the arrival of the hybrid descendants carrying both Sundodontry and Sindodontry dental morphologies that Denisovan ancestry and 3RM1 was introduced both into North America and South America. Whether these migrations included actual Denisovans is a vexing question, unlikely to be answered anytime soon. A better understanding of both 3RM1 and Denisovan ancestry among the indigenous peoples of the Americas now seems crucial to better piece together this incredible story of human migration at the time of the last ice age. Woo! That's a lot of dense information, but interesting. That was very dense, and I had more articles, but I'm sure many of us, our brains are a bit warped by all that information. So I think I might do a part two and cover the other articles that I had. I was going to do a deep dive, but I just realized I am on the clock. And this probably could have gone on for another hour or two. And I didn't want to do that to you guys on a beautiful Saturday. But I really do appreciate everyone who has sticked on and sticked with me through the technical hiccups and what have you. I really appreciate it. And if you would so kindly hit that like button, as that would greatly mean a lot and it would help me and the channel grow. So please, please, please hit that like button and make sure to subscribe if you're new to the channel. And tomorrow I will be doing a live stream. Tomorrow we are definitely doing a deep dive. And I've been putting this off for too long, but what's happening tomorrow, we're going to be discussing Hindu texts and quantum physics. So we're going to do a deep dive on that puppy tomorrow. I've been looking forward to that one for a minute now. And that'll be what we're going to be having for the end of the weekend. Next week, we're going to be talking about Edgar Cayce, Atlantis, and Giants. And then we're going to probably do another live stream on Giants because if you know me, I love me some Giants. I love that stuff. So that's going to be on the topic for next week. So tomorrow we're going to talk about Hindu texts and quantum physics. Next week, we will be talking about Edgar Cayce, Atlantis, the Akashic Records. And then we'll also be doing a two-parter on giants as well, more specifically on giants in North America. So that's what we're going to be talking about next week. So keep an eye out for the thumbnails for that. Make sure you hit the notification bell. Make sure you follow me on Twitter. It's at me at Kios Ronin, KoiosRonin. On Instagram, Ronin Art _music. But yeah, if you want to really talk with me and interact with me, Twitter is the best place. And if you have any thoughts or any recommendations on things you'd like for me to cover, please leave a comment on this video or hit me up on Twitter. But yeah, just a quick refresher. Tomorrow we're talking about Hindu texts and quantum physics. Next week, Edgar Cayce, Akashic Records, giants, and maybe we'll do I'll do a part 2 on the Denisovans, because I do find this information pretty interesting. And I think I might continue on that because I think it's just fascinating. But those are going to be what we're going to be covering next week. I'll be working on some more things to cover, so just catch the thumbnails if you're ever peeping on your YouTube or Rumble or what have you. But yeah, I know the summer is literally about to end next week. So if you can, for all my listeners out there and newcomers, please make sure you get outside, enjoy the weather if you're able to, and prepare yourself for the coming season change. If you're on the East Coast, if you're in the Midwest, hunker down, prepare for the cold. If you're on the West Coast, enjoy the sunshine. And until next time, stay positive, stay focused, stay true, and much love.